Welcome to the final episode of my Kawasaki S1 554 cylinder build, and in this episode I'll be showing you around the finished bike, taking it out for a test ride and fitting some freshly chrome plated parts. This little S1 554 cylinder has been really lovely to make. I used up a lot of old parts I've been storing for years in the shed and garage, but it rolls along the ground really nice. I've just made the exhaust system for it, so now I'm going to explain all about the bike. It's a lovely summer's afternoon and the solar powered water fountain is working really nice. We even got a little family of frogs that moved in the other day, which is really cool. I made the stainless steel expansion chambers from 1.2mm thick sheet, rolled them up by hand round my knee in wooden formers, TIG welded them up to fit nicely on the bike. I made them the same diameter as the original S3400 pipes and they seem to work really well. The four header pipes are standard Kawasaki fitment, chrome plated. The four baffles are removable to replace the wadding if the sound gets too loud after a period of time. When I make my expansion chambers, I like to tuck them in close to the bike as possible so there's no light shining through the frame. I don't like it when they hang down underneath. I guess there's no reason why they shouldn't, especially in racing applications, but I like to tuck them up tight. The mounting brackets are triangulated so they can be welded to the expansion chamber in two places, eliminated stress for cracking. And I put little dents in them to clear things like brake pedals and kickstarts as required. I retain the original gear lever and linkage arrangement, but it's reversed so it's one up and four down, racer style. The rest of the engine and carburetors are pretty much standard Kawasaki, apart from of course there's one extra cylinder. And I'm really pleased how the two central exhaust pipes fit nicely between the frame. With the left-hand side panel removed, you can see the new air filter system I made with a paper element filter and a 4-branch manifold at the front. This is made from plastic waste pipe that you buy at a hardware shop. It comes in white, but you can get it in black, but it's easy to spray black anyway, so that's what I do. The additional ignition coil is also mounted under the left-hand side panel. I covered the front brake in an earlier video. I modified the standard petrol tap by drilling a hole into the side of it and pushing in a new stub to feed the fourth carburettor. And the kickstart is reshaped by giving it a slight kink, otherwise it sticks out too far. The brake pedal is also slightly reshaped as well to clear the side of the engine where it sticks out a little bit more than it should do. Well, the time has finally come to take out for its first test ride, so I go and get on my helmet, jacket and gloves. It's a really hot day, but I need to wear my protective clothing. I have started the engine several times in recent days to tune the carburetors and make sure it's all running right, so I'm expecting it to go quite well. So I put the key in the ignition, turn on the fuel, press in the choke, and give it a kick. Well, the test ride went really well. The bike's really light and nimble, and I'm really pleased with that. So now I can take a few bits off and get them sent off for chrome plating. As I walk by, this little robin comes and lands right next to me. He's always in the garden. I think he's got a nest in one of the trees. A few weeks go by, and there's a knock at the door, and I eagerly open the door hoping it's my box of parts. And it is, so I pick it up and bring it in straight away. I take the parcel straight out into the garage and put it on my bench and start to unwrap it with my pocket knife. It's really well wrapped, and I pull out layers of bubble wrap and wadding. But eventually I find the parts inside, and they look absolutely amazing. With the brake pedal out, I continue to search and find the kickstart boss, the kickstart lever, and a grab rail. I inspect all the parts closely, and they are absolutely perfect. There's not a flaw anywhere. I am really pleased. This is a new pin that I made to replace the old one that was really worn. This one fits nicely in the boss with a nice smooth action. The other one was really floppy. To make a new pin, I found a bit of high tensile steel that was just bigger than the piece I needed, which was just perfect. So I put that in my 3-jaw chuck on my lathe to make a new oversized pin. I reamed out the holes in the kickstart boss and kickstart lever with the next size up reamer to make a nice round hole for the new pin to go in. So I'm now going to start machining the diameter to just a shade smaller so it's a nice sliding fit. With the diameter and length turned, the next thing I need to do is cut the groove for the circlip using a thin high-speed steel tool. If I started to machine the groove with this amount of overhang, there'd be a lot of chattering and vibration. So to get around that, I'll make up a bush by getting a piece of steel bar, drilling a hole in the centre that's a nice sliding fit over the new pin. Then I'm going to put it in my vise and cut a slit in it to make a split bush so I can grip back in the 3-jaw chuck. Then I can machine the groove just perfectly. This odd bit of scrap bar I picked up turns out to be really hard steel, but I'll get there in the end. There we go, that fits just perfect. So now I can put the split bush back into my 3-jaw chuck, grip it really tight, it'll squash down onto the new pin, and I can machine the groove for the circlip. The split bush worked perfect, and here's the new cut circlip groove. So now I've got to turn it round and face off the end to length. And the last thing I do is cut a nice chamfer to remove the sharp edge. And here's the finished pin, all ready for plating. But before I send it off, I'm just going to stamp the end. I put the pin back into the split bush and grip it in my vise tight, then get out my number and letter stamps. I've been working for quite a while now and I fancy a cup of tea and maybe a cake, So I think I'll pop in the kitchen to see if there's any there. Because Tracy was baking this morning, but she left me strict instructions not to pinch any cake because they're for a friend. But anyway, I'll have a quick look, just in case I can take one. But oh no, they're two big cakes, so I certainly can't take any. So I better make myself a cup of tea instead. I just remembered there's a cake tin over by the other side of the kitchen. It might have some cupcakes in, so I'll have a quick look. Yes, there's one left, so I'll pinch that. She won't notice. Well, that was so nice. Using my numbers and letter stamps, I stamp AM22 onto the head of the pin. There we go, that's just perfect. So now I can start assembling the kickstart. The new pin fits just nice in the reamed out holes, so then I have to fit the little spring and the ball bearing with some grease, push the whole lot together and put on the circlip. I use a small screwdriver to apply a bit of grease to the hole where the spring and the ball bearing go, then to the pivot points. Then I insert the little spring, followed by the ball bearing, holding it in place with a bit of grease. The next bit's quite fiddly. You have to put the boss in, press it down by hand, hold it in line, and put the pin through and squash it all together. It takes a little bit of fiddling, but you get there eventually. And once it's popped through, I can put on the circlip. Well, that's the kickstart assembled, and it looks and feels just nice and clicks in and out of its ratchet position perfectly. The next thing I need to do is refit the old kickstart rubber. This isn't actually in good condition, but it's gone really hard and I can't get it over the little raised boss at the end. So what I do is take it into the kitchen, put it in a cup, boil the kettle and pour some hot water over it, and this will soften it right up. After a few minutes, it's really soft and bendy, so it should now easily push over the kickstart. And there we go, straight over, and it shrinks back down to its original tight fit on the shaft, just perfect. While the parts have been away at the chrome platers, the seasons have changed from summer to autumn. The grass is green and the leaves have started to fall off the trees, but now it's time to put the parts back on the bike. So I first of all get a bit of grease and smear it on the shaft of the brake pedal to make it slide on nicely. The brake pedal drops in line over the top, ready for the clevis pin to go through. This can be quite fiddly to do, especially with a split pin, and the split pin goes behind, which makes it even more tricky, but you have to fiddle away. You get there in the end, and the brake works just nice. With the split pin secured, the next thing I do is fit the spring for the brake light switch. A small circlip is used to hold the brake pedal in place on the frame. It snaps in place into a groove on the shaft. Well, that's the brake pedal fitted. It looks so much nicer with its fresh chrome plate. So now I'm going to fit the kickstart. So first of all, I put a bit of grease on the spline. This helps it slide on nicely. I glance up at the trees and there's a pigeon looking down at me, just sitting there watching what I'm doing. Really strange. Then he flies off. The kickstart is a nice sliding fit on the spline and taps on nicely with my hand. Then I secure the bolt. I really like using ratchet spanners. They're so much easier to use, and also there's less chance of damaging the heads of the bolts because you're not putting the spanners on and off all the time. You put them on once, do up the bolt, then take them off. And now give it a quick wipe down with a rag, and everything looks really gleaming and shiny. So I can now fit the grab rail. The grab rail slides on nicely from the rear. You have to be very careful going past the paint until the two tangs engage with the shock absorber top mounting bolts. I then tighten the two top nuts finger tight. And then, working from underneath the bike, try and attach the two bolts that go through the frame into the grab rail. This could be quite fiddly. You have to wiggle the grab rail around, pull it up and down, in and out, until the bolts start. And then using my ratchet spanner, I can tighten both the bolts up tight. With the two lower frame bolts tight, I can then go around and tighten up the top nuts on the shock absorber mounts to make sure they're really tight. Well, that's it. The grab rail's fitted and it looks amazing. I'm really pleased with that. So now I just need to wait for a nice dry day to go out for some rides to put some miles on it. I've done about 200 miles so far, so I've got another 300 to go, and then I can open it up and see how she performs. I'm sure it's going to go really well. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It's getting quite late now, so I need to go and check if the hedgehogs have got enough food for tonight, because they come every night. If there's no food, there'll be a right argy-bargy. So anyway, see you all soon. We've got two hedgehog feeding stations in the garden. I made them for leftover bits of fence panelling and shiplap timber. The tops lift up like this so you can see inside. And yes, Tracy's already been out and topped them up with food, so I haven't got to do that job. So that's really cool, because they'll be here soon. As soon as it gets dark, you hear them rummaging around outside for the food, in and out like yo-yos. Sometimes they fight, sometimes we're not quite sure what they're up to, but they make a lot of noise.